Hi there. So I wanted to share a video today on the importance of regulating our own value and our own self-worth. So I've been watching quite a few things recently. I've always had a bit of an interest in this topic, but personality disorders. And when you look at a lot of them, I've realized because I believe we all have elements of all of them. I see there's this like balance place in the middle and there's like a spectrum. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so this is just my opinion. But this is, my opinion from researching things for a period of time. So, I believe there's this spectrum and we all fall somewhere on various spectrums. So, maybe you have some traits of ADHD, but, absolutely no traits of like Asperger's. I think most of us in today's society, I think society plays a role in some of these things as well. I think there's a lot. I think social media has probably, I'd have to look at the figures, which I haven't, but I imagine it's caused a rise in both narcissism and ADHD actually, because we're fed information in such short bursts now that I'm sure that leads to certain issues with attention. I've even heard of people getting tics from watching TikTok. Like there is some kind of medical condition that some of these sites are causing. And I think also we've become quite sort of self-obsessed in a way without, it really you can't really get away from it these days. You really have to sort of sell yourself online. Whatever it is you do, all your marketing now, you're not going and having meetings with people. It's almost all online. So everything you share on, you have your own page, and everything you share on your own page on the most part is like you. In the past, if I was, say, an artist, all it would be about would be my art. Whereas now it's like I have to sell myself as almost like a person to go along with my art, because people want that story of that person. That's just like how it goes. It's all become one. So it's very much about the self. And, does this mean people have like full-fledged personality disorders where, all personality disorders are on a spectrum? You can be on a spectrum where it's hard to function in daily life. And you can be on the other side where it's just slight traits, but it doesn't really cause you many problems. But I think it's great to be aware of these things because, for example, I think there's a lot of us, especially that have been through like a twin flame journey, that have things that stop us from getting into, deep, fulfilling relationships. And that does affect your life. So it's important to look at what's stopping that, why you're not achieving that. And generally, I think I'm probably not alone when I can read several of these things and find I've got traits from them, So I've always had a kind of interest in digging around. Plus, you'll meet people, and these days everyone's a narcissist. So if you meet somebody and they hurt you, they're all, and they're a little bit emotionally cold, they're automatically, a narcissist, according to the psychiatrists of Facebook. But one thing that I really, really noticed, so something that I've done for a long time is if you're meeting a narcissist, and I think I've made a video about this before, like you have the same issue, like the world is a mirror, you have the same problem. It's just you are displaying it in a very different way to your mirror, to your sort of polar opposite mirror. If you were like perfectly, stable and able to have a great committed relationship, you wouldn't be attracting narcissists. We actually have to be thankful to the narcissist. And I know at the time that to all these people, the narcissists, the sociopaths, at the time that, no one wants to say that. No one wants to be thankful, like thanking them for giving them the experience of that connection. But when you look back in hindsight, you can really see how they made you grow and they made you evolve. And something I've really put a link on recently is that nearly all these personality disorders, particularly like cluster B and the people that are attracted to cluster B, have problems regulating their own self-value. And they both actually seek in value outside of themselves because they can't generate it within them, and they can't regulate it within them, and it's like they have to find it outside of themselves, either through work or their social media or the way they look or just how people interact with them. Both of them actually have a very strong predisposition to not being able to create that value within themselves. A lot of people with narcissism, for example, get very, very depressed when their source, when their narcissistic supply is taken away. And why is that? Because that's how they formed their value. But then on the other side of things, the people that are like strong empaths and have weak boundaries, maybe borderline traits, these people need that person to make them feel valuable. So in all these situations, the key link that I found myself, not being a psychologist, is that there's an inability to form value without outside influences. And this seems to like go across the path of many of these. I'm not saying all of them, but many of them seem to have this link of needing an outside source to give them value. So how do you, heal from these things? Well, for me, for many of them, it's learning to regulate and find your own self-value. And that's not easy. It's a process. It's going to take a bit of time. But that, I personally believe, is one of the quickest ways to move forwards out of these personality types from affecting your life to the point where, you can't hold a relationship. You just can't, you're depressed all the time. And if you can learn to find your own inner self-value, then a lot of them won't affect as much. So, I definitely can go back in time and read. There's a couple that I can read and really realize that I've got quite a lot of traits from them, or I used to in the past. And I don't have them so much anymore. Like I've really actually worked through them. Like the ones I would say is, I would definitely say that I had a lot of traits of borderline in the way that I was in relationships, because I was just unable to find my own value. I just would always seek someone else's opinion on like my own value. I just wasn't able to find it in myself, or certainly not consistently. And I just had like a real emotional instability, like everything in my life would fall apart when a relationship wasn't working, or just with every relationship was like a divorce. Every relationship ending felt like a divorce. It was so intense, and it destroyed me so much, and it took away all my focus from my actual life, and it was just overwhelming. But over the years, I've actually kind of gotten to a point where I don't have that at all anymore. Someone could actually leave me, and I actually I'm like, I don't even shed a tear. I'm just like, okay, back to my work. And then what I find is people don't leave because my energy is totally different. So they don't leave because I have self-value now that I didn't used to have before. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying that there's not areas that I've not still got to work on, but I managed to find my own self-value. And that's not from like walking around being like, oh, I'm really hot, like I'm the bomb. It's from actually just being okay. Sort of, I think people misunderstand self-value. Self-value isn't thinking you're the hottest thing that's ever walked on planet Earth. Self-value is knowing you're enough, that you are you're your own special, unique you, and you're enough. And if other people want to breadcrumb you, or not step in fully, or they don't want you, you can value yourself enough to be like, okay, they're just not for me. When we can't regulate our own self-value and that person does that, we like fall apart because we've placed all of our value in them. So when they're like love bombing us and treating us amazing, we're like, oh, I'm amazing, so you have a very up and down value, because it's just all on outside sources. So whatever your outside source is showing you, if it's good, it's like, yeah, you're on top of the world. And then it's suddenly they walk away and you're like down here, and you end up on this sort of crazy roller coaster like this. And when you realize your value, you have boundaries, you don't fall apart when somebody doesn't want to like commit to you or be with you or anything like that, because you don't make it about yourself. You're just like, okay, we just don't have like a connection, like we don't have the ultimate connection, there's someone else better for me. Or you know, you're not gonna like fall apart and make it all about yourself. And this is what happens when we can't find our own value. Somebody walks away, and rather than just think maybe we're not meant to be, maybe, you know, we're not the right connection, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough, like. And then there's a tendency to change oneself, you know, and do all these modifications, like, oh, maybe if I'm skinnier they'll like me, maybe if I look younger they'll like me, maybe if I do this they'll like me. And all of this stuff is actually just repelling people more and more and more, because you're like changing yourself simply to make outside sources give you value. And it's never going to be permanent. It's never going to last. Like, it has to be done inside. And it is a journey, and it is a process. And it's not, you know, something that can be done overnight. But in my experience, the sort of easiest way to heal from being either side of these dynamics, if you're meeting people that, you know, are leaving you in this devastated mess because they've walked away or not committed to you or whatever, or you're the one that, you know, can't commit to anybody, and it all comes down to value at the core of things, and needing outside sources to give you that value that you can't give to yourself. So rather than keep on, you know, to break the cycle, you have to stop at some point and really sit with yourself. And it's going to be really painful. And like I said, it's going to be a journey. But on the other side of it, it is a world apart when you can regulate and get your own value. And like I said, that doesn't mean walking around thinking you're a god. It just means loving yourself to a level where you're not going to take less than you deserve, and you're not going to make somebody treating you that way about you not being good enough. You're just going to know that that's not right for you. And this is how healthy people regulate. And when we don't, we like fall apart, and we just think we're not worthy, and we're not, you know, good enough, and it's all us, and it's all that we need to be something else, and then they'll stay, you know. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. And yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts on videos that I want to do, so I might pop a few up today. And I hope everyone's good, and I'll speak to you soon.